It was a gray, cold Sunday in the middle of December. In the woods on the north slopes above us, we could see the black trunks and branches, just faintly traced with snow, which gave them a silvery, delicate look, the look of impossibly fine handwork that nature sometimes has. And they looked cold. The wind was coming straight up the river into our faces, but we were dressed warmly and the wind didn't matter much, at least not yet. The force that mattered, that surrounded us and inundated us with its sounds and pulled at or shook or carried everything around us, was the river. Still Wendell Berry, same essay. It is illuminating and suitably humbling to a man to recognize the great power of the river. But after he has recognized its power, he is next called upon to recognize its limits. It can neither swallow up nor carry off all the trash that people convenience themselves by dumping into it. It can't carry off harmlessly all the sewage and pesticides and industrial contaminants that we are putting into it now, much less all that we will be capable of putting into it in a few years. We haven't accepted, we don't really believe that the most characteristic product of our age of scientific miracles is junk. But that is so. And we still think and behave as though we face an unspoiled continent with thousands of acres of living space for every man, woman, and child. We still sing America the Beautiful as though we had not created in it by strenuous effort, at great expense, and with dauntless self-praise and unprecedented ugliness. The last couple of miles of our trip, we could hear off in the bottoms alongside us the cries of pileated woodpeckers, and we welcomed the news of them. These belong to the big trees and big woods, and more than any other birds along this river, they speak out of our past. Their voices are loud and wild, the cries building strongly and then trailing off arrhythmically and hesitantly as though reluctant to end. Though they never seemed very near, we could hear them clearly over the commotion of the water. There were probably only a pair or two of them, but their voices kept coming to us a long time, creating beyond the present wildness of the river, muddy from the ruin of mountainsides and farmlands, the intimation of another wildness that will not overflow again in our history. The wind had finally made its way into our clothes, and our feet and hands and faces were beginning to stiffen a little with the cold. And so when home came back in sight, we thought it wasn't too soon. We began to slant across the currents toward the shore. The river didn't stop to let us off. We ran the bow out onto the path that goes up to my house, and the current rippled on past the stern as though it were no more than the end of a stranded log. We were out of it, wobbling off, stiff-legged along the midrib on our way to the high ground. With the uproar of the water still in our ears, we had, as we entered the house, the sense of having been utterly outside the lives we live as usual. My warm living room was a place we seemed to have been away from a long way. It needed getting used to.